say I am the king is no true king.
Lovesick got the 19. No telling where I'm hiding. She say I'm sounding like the 90s, but I'm looking like I'm 19. Dead in the living room, dead in the living room. Dead in the living room, dead in the living room. Consumed by a useless night, making moves on my bike, trying to stay out of sight. If I was to lose my life, would everything just be alright? Couple backs down, but I never back down. She wanna lay back down on my bed. Used to be the class clown, turn into the cash cow. They just wanna ask out, try again. Used to whip around with a fifth up in his truck. Give a fuck, bitches tryna sit in like a duck. Then I turned everything into dusk in the cut. Jimmy Newlong, I've been whipping some shit up. Lovesick got the 19. No telling where I'm hiding. Say I'm sounding like the 90s.